Okay guys, so this is another video. I just filmed the previous one, so it's still Super Bowl Sunday and there's still a bunch of motorcycles. But this is my Valentines Elegance edit, which I think is actually probably my best work to this day. I mean, I've only done 7 edits, but I think this one is my favorite. I wanted to make it look like a Valentine, so right here I'm actually kind of making a heart around the main character to look like a parasol, actually. So I use the same colors that are in the parasol, and I wanted it to look good as a square, which kind of caused problems whenever I posted it on Twitter because it just didn't look as good when it wasn't a square. But I decided not to let that bother me. But here I am adding stripes, which actually took a lot longer than I thought because I had problems with like the way the stripes were hitting each other, and I ended up zooming in on them a lot, which means that I had to kind of like re-edit the entire thing, which like right here, which took a while. This was probably like 45 minutes in when I finally fixed it. Here I'm adding some roses because I thought it was too plain on its own, which I actually just kind of copy pasted some of them and rotated them and kind of added simple line art to be similar to the character whenever I finish it in the same colors. Here I'm adding multiply shading with the same pink I always use, which I lower the opacity on in a minute whenever I finish it all, because it looks a little brown like this, and I didn't really like that, so I go back and change that. But just working on that, just to add another like layer into the piece and tie in the green that's in the corsage, which is a new accessory in the game. It kind of looked a little out of place without it. Adding the lace details on the heart, which is kind of the last thing I do, I think, before I work on the central character. The first thing I do on the character is to blend out everything and, you know, work on the clipping like I talked about in my last video with the teddy. Yeah, you can see me kind of getting rid of the sparkles because it looks less polished, and being polished I think is actually the most important part of an edit, at least for me. I like it to be really clear and for you to be able to see all the shapes. So just kind of fixing everything I don't like, adding the line art now, which I use the same line weight, just kind of tracing the lines. In the hair I had to do a little bit of improvising because, you know, it's just a big mass of pink. But I chose this hair for a good reason because I thought it would look really good with line art. I decided to do a thinner line art for this one than I normally do, just to be more delicate and elegant, as I named the piece, which I also named it because, you know, the parasol is called the Elegant Parasol, so I wanted it to match it a lot. This character is kind of the parasol personified. I work on the line art for this one for a long time. I'm still working on the hair right now. I keep forgetting parts, so I have to go back. Adding the eyelashes. I always use the lashes. It's kind of like I don't go a day without wearing them anymore. I was so lucky to get them. Here I am adding the darker pink for the dress and the bow around her neck. Just using the same line weight, adding the lines only where they need to be, where there's a big shift in value, just to make it look softer. You can see me working on the hair, going back, working on the hat with the same color. I try to use similar colors to make it look more cohesive. Working on the outline of the parasol, which is really a lot more simple. It's quick, you just trace it basically. I wasn't originally going to do the lines like that on the lace behind, but I thought it made it look a lot more dimensional. Here I'm working on the white, which I used kind of a light grayish pink for. I messed up for a little bit and I forgot some stuff, so I had to go back and change that in the original drawing layer, kind of blend it out. There I am adding the bow, adding the details on the corset, adding the bows, and I think, yeah, I add some line art to the roses that's a little darker to kind of blend it in because they looked a little bit flat before. Here I'm adding like really light shading because if it was really dark there'd be too much going on because this character is already pretty detailed. I just use a multiply layer as I always do with the paint color that I always use. Doing the hair, which kind of a trick that I do is choose hair dyes that already have a lot of dimension in them so that you don't have to edit it so much whenever you actually go to shade it. Just making it all blend together though. I actually use two values. I use a lighter pink and a darker pink for this one. I think I only use the darker pink in the hair though, and maybe a little bit on the bow on the gloves. Here I'm adding blush, adding more blush. It just brings the character to life, as I said in my last video. Messing with the hair a little bit, adding highlights now. This is just the regular blending mode to be softer than what I normally do. I actually go back and use a light pen. There I'm adding highlights in the eyes. You can see the light pen here, which is basically just built-in light, and then I lower the opacity. And here I am adding the shading around just to make sure it really pops the central character. And adding my watermark. I messed with particles, I didn't add them, but yeah, that's actually the end. So thank you for watching.